No, I didn't like that. Because, no, okay. Oh, don't put all that in. Okay.
We'll see.
Whoop, missed the camera. Because if he was fully on top of his game and healthy, and his knee was perfectly fine, why is he not being played more?
I got bones, I got bones, I got 206, I got 206, I got.
So Gurley had his ACL reconstruction and he played well. He recovered and he was doing well. And then, all of a sudden now something's happened. He wasn't as present in the NFC Championship and he was barely there, hardly there in the Super Bowl. So what's actually going on? So he had his ACL reconstruction, and by all standards, we should assume that he had it well done with a good solid reconstruction by an expert orthopedic surgeon, and should be back into the game on top of his athletic prowess. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, Gurley says he's fine, that his knee is fine. We know from reports that an MRI from last fall said that there was no knee damage. So what is going on? We hear intermittent reports that, oh, it's a little bit of pain, inflammation, he tweaked his knee, something's going on, but Gurley insists his knee is fine. There are some reports out there, could it be in his head? Well, we've talked about this before, so that is certainly a possibility. But let's first go down what are some of the issues that could come up in regards to the knee. Now, I've talked about this before. There are certain kinematic, dynamic, physiologic, kinematic aspects of a knee reconstruction that need to occur. And the most important is proprioception. However, we do know from kinematic data from a colleague at Stanford, Tom Andriacchi, that the actual moments as well as the overall tibiofemoral positioning of the knee after an ACL reconstruction done perfectly well is still not as normal according to patients with an intact ACL. So the patient with the ACL injures their knee, has an abnormal gait kinematic based on moment and displacement of the tibiofemoral alignment. That then gets reconstructed perfectly well according to current standard level of care. However, the knee kinematic data and the gait analysis show that it's not quite normal in terms of the analytics. So, could that play a role? Yes. Other factors include proprioception. So his ability to know where his knee is in space relative to his motion. So his ability to bounce around, jump, run, sprint, and move on the field are not quite 100%. So these are all factors that are implicit, subconscious, reflexive, and those all are important to have that proprioceptive feedback. And those may be components that take time. Typically, and this comes from a lot of hockey players, they say that their knee doesn't feel 100% or they don't forget about their knee until at least 2 years after an ACL reconstruction. So that means that you don't feel totally solid on your knee until a couple of years later. Even if you're back, you're solid, you got your strength, and all the numbers look okay, your performance may not be quite there that you yourself see. Now, we are the most critical when it comes to our own selves and performance that we can achieve, and those are some of the factors that may also be at play. Other anatomical, physiological considerations could be just related to the overall healing. Now, depending, could he have some inflammation because he had some issues related to the graft? Sure. But if an MRI was normal, according to the reports back in the fall, then there would have been effusion, inflammation, synovitis, or some type of cyclops lesion. Could there have been scar tissue? Could there have been something happening inside the knee? That would have been identified on the MRI. And according to the reports, the MRI said no damage. So what's going on? Because if there was no damage, then it would have ruled out a new meniscal tear or meniscal injury, cartilage injury. Sometimes when you have an ACL, well, actually, often, almost always, when you have a major ACL injury, you get a bone contusion. So sometimes that results in bone edema. So could he have some subchondral cysts? Could he have some bone edema or cartilage late identified changes that may in fact be normal or not? We don't know. We just know there was no damage. Does that mean that there's no new damage? Could it be that he has some cartilage injury that was still residual, that's still there, that is untreated? We don't know. Do we know whether he had any other types of injections in the knee, cortisone, PRP, or other sources? We don't know. So, from all intents and purposes, we have to assume, based on the information we know, that his knee is anatomically reasonable, that there was no damage in the knee according to the MRI, even though he's not playing as often as he could. Gurley says that his knee is fine. So if that's the case, even though we know the kinematic data isn't quite normal, we have to assume that his knee is fine. So what's going on? Sometimes an ACL could stretch a little bit. So the MRI may say that there's no damage, but could he have a stretched ACL? And this could happen to anyone, even in the best of circumstances. So could he have stretched the ACL, in which case he's getting a little bit of, not a full pivot shift where he's getting unstable, but a little bit of pivot glide or something where he doesn't quite feel that it's 100%. So again, that's an anatomical consideration. So that could be the case as well. What else is there? Well, there's a lot of mental pressure going on. He has a $60 million contract. He is right in his prime for this game. So there's a lot of mental pressure going on. Now, some people can handle it. Now, and maybe he can. I don't want to say that he cannot. He's a great player. He's been on top of the game. He's been in front of media. He knows how to handle pressure, but now he's in a point where he's not being played as often. So could there be something going on between McVay and him? I don't know. That's for the football sportscasters to figure out. We're trying to figure out why he's not being played or played from a medical, clinical consideration, and it could be his mental psyche. So there's the mental pressure. Or it could be simply that he's just not totally trusting his knee. So he doesn't have faith in his knee, and so he doesn't trust it. So when he moves, he's like, just has that slight hesitation. And, you know, you've seen the best running backs in the world, right? Play in the NFL. They don't hesitate. There's no hesitation. When they want to go left and then decide to move right or jump and move and do some amazing acrobatic just to get out and into the end zone, they don't hesitate. So there could be some hesitation going on, and could that be mental? Could that be proprioceptive? Could that be a combination of mental and kinematic? Absolutely. We don't know. There's so much involved with the health and healing of an ACL that most of the time everything goes fine and you play at your top performance. But we're talking about elite world-class athletes here. So even a slight hesitation or distraction could deal with a lot of change in his game. And so, you know, he's been dealt a pretty decent card. He's in the NFL. But then he had an injury before he got there, and now he has to deal with it. So that's one factor. And could there be other distractions out there? I mean, there's a lot of distractions we didn't know about before. For example, a player like Tiger Woods had distractions we didn't know about. Could there be something happening in Gurley's personal life? Well, I don't want to pry, and that's not for me to decide, but we've all been there, where even at work or play or anything, if something is stressing you or causing mental distraction, that can cause mental fatigue, and it can affect your psyche and your performance in the game. So maybe we need to give him a break. Let's just give him his space and let McVay and let Gurley sort it out. If it is his mental game, let's just hands off, man. This is a guy who can play the game. He's proven to play the game. So let's just step back, Let him recover, let him heal. He's got another whole year to get back into it. He has to be accountable. I mean, this guy has a huge contract. He knows it. And he says he's fine. Maybe he just needs time. And maybe it's the mental psyche of the overall balance of the knee that he doesn't quite have. He has a slight hesitation. He'll work it through. Give him a break. Let him get back into the game and play the way we know he can play and the way he knows he can play. The football sportscasters will say what they want. Only McVay and Gurley know what's really going on. Let's let them figure it out. But, we know that there's a lot going on. So it could be the knee, but I sense that it could be more than that or a combination of factors. So mental game and the knee together, and recovering from this could be causing some mental fatigue or hesitation and lack of trust in his knee. We don't know, but that's my take.